everybody, this is Marian here, and welcome back to my channel. I'm back today with another episode of my last 3 reads. This is a video that I published maybe about a year ago. I can't even really remember at this point, and while I'm not near my computer, I can't really look it up. But I thought it would be fun to just kind of film a little video here. It's Friday, and I thought I'd share my last 3 reads that I finished. I finished an audiobook last night, and basically that was the catalyst for why I wanted to film this video, because it was such a strange book that I just needed to talk about it. And it's going to be really hard to review on my book blog because I don't want to add any spoilers. I think that if somebody's going to read this book, they really need to go into it fresh. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit in this video. I won't be giving any spoilers. I'm just going to talk about what the book description is on Goodreads. But I think to keep you interested, I'm going to start with my other 2 books first, and then we'll talk about that book last. So let's get started. The first book that I'm going to talk about is actually an ARC that I received from NetGalley. It's called The 40-Year Grudge by Liza Tully. Now, I wasn't really familiar with this book, but I received an email from the publishing company asking me to be a part of the blog tour. So I thought, hey, this sounds cool. It's a cozy mystery. Well, it may not actually be a cozy mystery. I'm not really familiar with all of the different types of mysteries that there are, but in this book, it definitely has cozy vibes, but it's about a private detective and her assistant who have to go and solve a mystery together. So yeah, I'll try to look that up afterwards and maybe put a little something in the description, but it's not a cozy mystery in that, like, it's a small town where, like, people keep getting murdered. It's more so a detective novel, I suppose. But yeah, I was super pleasantly surprised. I wound up really enjoying it. So the main character is Detective Aubrey Merritt, and she's kind of a hard cookie. I will say that because she is older, like middle-aged, and because she is older and getting close to retirement age, she's a little bit cranky, and meanwhile her assistant Olivia Blunt is a Gen Z person. I really liked her. I thought her investigating was pretty good, even though she does seem to have a lot to learn. But the premise of the book is that they are kind of at a crossroads, not sure what their next case is going to be, and Aubrey Merritt receives an invitation to her 40-year sorority reunion. And it's going to be at her friend's house in New Mexico, and everybody's supposed to come and bring their partners. But the thing is that the host of the party actually receives a death threat. So at first, Aubrey Merritt was not wanting to go. She's like, I don't want to see these people. And I mean, can you blame her? Like, reunions are kind of lame because the people that you actually want to see are the people that you make an effort to see, right? But anyway, I digress. So she's not super keen on going to the reunion, but eventually she gives in when she realizes that she has to protect her friend. Meanwhile, when they get to the ranch in New Mexico, things are not what they expect, and they soon realize that the person they thought they had to protect is not actually the person needing protecting. I thought it was a really fun mystery. I really liked it a lot. I liked the relationship between Merritt and Blunt, and so I do want to go back and make sure that I read the first book in the series, and I definitely hope that there are 4 books in the series. The one thing that was kind of tricky is that because it is a sorority reunion, there's a lot of women, and all of their names kind of blurred together to me. Their personalities were different and they were well described, but some of them were like more interesting than others, which meant I remembered their names, but some of the other people not so much. I did think it was a really fun mystery. It kept me guessing, and there were a lot of different angles to look at and a lot of different suspects, so I thought that was really fun. In general, I just like books about sororities. I feel like I've read a couple. I'll put links to my book reviews down below, but there's just something dramatic about sororities, maybe because they're all women, I don't know, but they seem to make good book matter. So that was the first book that I've read recently. I really enjoyed it. I'd recommend it if you like mysteries or cozy mysteries, detective novels, all that good stuff. And so the second book that I read recently is called The Hot Honey Hideaway by Harper Graham. This is also a book in the series where I don't know what I do. Am I weird that I just start reading books in the middle of series? It's just something that I do apparently, and I think that especially with this kind of series, it's a contemporary romance series. They are a series in which all the characters know each other, but they're also like standalone romance novels. So while I did think I could have benefited from reading the rest of the books in the series first, I also really enjoyed this one as a standalone romance. So what is this one about? This one is about a small town called Maple Falls. And actually, before I get too far into this, I will say that this book is kind of similar to the Dream Harbor series that's so popular by Laurie Gilmore. And it's not like small town romances are like a unique type of book. I mean, there's so many of them. But I think that what made Laurie's series stand out was the fact that the covers were like very interesting and the fact that each book is focused on a business owner in the small town of Dream Harbor. So the fact that her books focus on a different business owner in each book, who finds romance obviously, but then also the fact that the covers are each a business in the town of Dream Harbor, I think that's very unique, right? And so I've seen a lot of books on like Amazon and in Kindle Unlimited that kind of not copy necessarily, but maybe like emulate that idea a little bit. So when I first started reading this book, I was like, oh, is this just going to be kind of like a copy paste of the Dream Harbor series? I don't know. And then I was like, is it even fair to have that thought? Because it's not like people can't write about small town romances about people that have businesses in small towns. But anyway, those are just some thoughts that I had before starting the book. But anyway, so the story takes place in Maple Falls, and the main character in this book is named Krista, and her business that she runs is called the Hot Honey Hideaway. And it's kind of like a cafe slash cocktail bar where like during the day they do fun coffee drinks. She also is right on the lake, so she does like boat rentals, paddle boarding, kayak rentals, that kind of stuff. And then her grandparents, actually own a campground, which I think is across the lake. I wish there was a map, but again, I listened to the audiobook, so it's not like I would have been able to see it anyway. So Krista and her friends are having cocktail night at the Hideaway, and one of her friends happens to meet a travel photographer in town named Joe, and him and Krista take a liking to each other right away. So throughout the book, they wind up signing up for this thing called the Summer Swap, and it's kind of like a publicity, like marketing thing for the small town of Maple Falls, where everybody's really excited about it and everybody's posting about it on social media. But basically, Krista and Joe trade jobs for the week. So Krista becomes like the town photographer, and Joe tries to run the Hot Honey Hideaway. As you can probably imagine, there's a lot of like crazy mishaps, hijinks, drama. But it's a really cute story, and I think that while the plot wasn't the most original, I really appreciated the cozy vibes of the story. I loved the small town. I loved all of Krista's friends. They were so cute. You can tell that a lot of her friends are like slowly being paired off in the different novels. And at the end of the book, Krista's sister Robin comes to town, and I think Robin is actually the main character of the next book in the series. So that'll be really fun to check out, especially because the next book, I believe, takes place in a bookstore. And if you're watching this video, you're a reader. We all love bookstores. So I think on Goodreads, I gave it 4 stars. I wound up being really pleasantly surprised. I thought it was a super enjoyable book, and I definitely want to plan to catch up on the rest of the series. I think this is book 4, the next book coming out is 5, and I'm pretty sure they're available in Kindle Unlimited, so I can check them out with my KU membership. I'll try to put a link down below if I remember to do so. And then the last book, the one that we've all been waiting for, is called Woman Down by Colleen Hoover. Now, first I should preface this by saying that I am not a Colleen Hoover hater. I am a Colleen Hoover lover. I've been reading her books since she first started self-publishing. I remember reading Slammed, and I remember reading Point of Retreat, and I was just obsessed with them. I thought they were the best, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like, nobody writes the kind of books that I want to read. And then this author is here, and she's just like writing these amazing stories and self-publishing them, and I could buy them for $2.99. Because I was in college at that time and I didn't have a ton of like disposable income for books. So that was pretty cool for me. But yeah, so then Colleen Hoover started publishing more and more, and she started becoming beloved by everybody. Not everybody, like I said, there's a lot of haters, but what can you do? And then there was the whole It Ends With Us drama, and I'm not going to really talk about it, but obviously there was a lot of drama with the It Ends With Us movie, and the 2 main characters, their actors were suing each other, And that must have been really awkward for Colleen because I don't know how involved she was in the movie. Like, was she there every day on set? Probably not. If I'm wrong, tell me. But I just can't imagine she was that privy to everything that was going on set. So personally, I do feel empathy for her. Like all the hate that she must have gotten because of this whole situation, it must have been pretty unbearable, which is why for a while she wasn't publishing books. I think she took some time to like take care of herself, worry about her family, just live her life. And I know she was also diagnosed with cancer at one point, and I think she's since been in remission. So, like, there was a couple of years there where she wasn't publishing any new books, and people noticed. And then recently this year, I believe this was published in January of 2026, she released this book called Woman Down that is very interesting because it may or may not be loosely based off of her life. I checked the book out through Kindle Unlimited and I listened to the audiobook. But there's an author's note at the beginning of the first chapter in which she kind of shares her inspiration for the story. And she says that this book is not based off of my life whatsoever. Any similarities are just similarities. And that's fine, I believe her. But what I do think is that Colleen must have had like a lot of trauma with social media and people just being nasty to her after the whole It Ends With Us situation. And I imagine that a lot of that pain was probably written into the main character of Petra in this book. Because that's the thing, the main character in this book is an author who hasn't written anything for a long time. And the reason for that is because she had a film adaptation made off of one of her best-selling novels, and there was a situation where the whole plot of the book was about a love triangle, and the movie version completely cut one of the characters out, so there was no longer a love triangle. And the author, Petra Rose, her fans went crazy. They did not like that there were changes made to their beloved book in the movie format. And so that's what we learn at the beginning of the novel. Petra hasn't written for a while, but her goal is to go off on a little self-made writing retreat in a cabin in the woods. And it's a place where she's gone before. It's off of like a lake that she's familiar with, and she often goes there for like self-imposed writers retreats. So she's familiar with the area. However, she has to stay at a different house this time because the house that she usually books is booked already. There's a lot of interesting characters in this story. There are the people who rent her the house are actually, they live at the end of the street. And so weirdly enough, even though like most Airbnb bookers will like leave you alone to do your thing while you rent their house, these people are kind of like up in her business and always like checking in on her. So that's kind of strange right off the bat. There's an inciting incident where Petra meets a police officer. And funny enough, the main character in her book that she's trying to write is also a police officer. And so she is the kind of person where she gets her inspiration from like learning about things and experiencing them. So she decides to like kind of start interviewing him to like get to know him, get in his mind, get to know the job. And that's where I'm going to stop talking about the plot because like I said, I think that this is a really interesting like romantic suspense novel. And it's really better if you go into it not knowing very much about it. On one hand, I really did not like this book. I thought that from the first page, I thought that Petra was a very unreliable narrator, and I just didn't enjoy reading about her. Honestly, like she seemed depressed, and like maybe she could benefit from talking to somebody. So, yeah. I also thought she had very loose morals. There's, a lot of instances in this book where she does things that she's not proud of, and then she kind of like blames them on the person that she does them with, or she blames them on like the people that she's interacting with, which isn't great and doesn't make for a very likable main character. So I struggled with that. There's also a whole lot of stuff in this book that is just truly wild. And sometimes I have trouble getting into that. So for probably about the first 2/3 of this book, I was like, what is going on? What am I reading? Who are these people? Like, I'm so confused. Like, I know they're not real, but the choices that they're making are so insane. But like with all Colleen Hoover novels, I mean, think about Verity, for instance. I really enjoyed Verity. But think about how she always has to kind of like have a twist in there. So there's a lot of twists and turns in this novel that I really didn't expect. And it's one of those things where by the end of the book, I kind of like sat there and I thought about it for a while and I was like, did those twists make it better? Maybe. I think they did. I think that, probably about halfway through this book I would have given it like 2 stars. And then by the end I was like, I think that's a 4-star read for me. So yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it at that. I really don't want to give anything away. So I know that was super vague, and if it wasn't fun to listen to, I'm sorry. I would recommend reading it. It is available in Kindle Unlimited, so if you have that membership, you can read it now, or you can purchase it for yourself, or I'm sure libraries have it in like Libby. I don't know if they have it like on the shelves, but I know that my Libby app has like so many new releases in there. So definitely check it out if you're looking for a romantic suspense. If you're a Colleen Hoover fan, I think you'll probably like it. I'm a fan of her work, and I think that it was very interesting. So yeah, thanks so much for stopping by today and watching this video. I just felt like filming something. I haven't filmed anything in a while, and I'd like to kind of have some YouTube content on here in addition to my blog work. So if you're new here and you're looking for more reading recommendations, I'll leave my blog link down below in the description. Check it out if you'd like to. I might write a review of Woman Down for my blog, but I might not because it's just going to be like vague ramblings, and who wants to read that? All right, well, I gotta get going. I've got to go to the grocery store, and I'm having a craving for cookies, so I kind of want to go to Crumble. Have you ever been to Crumble? If you have, let me know in the comments down below what your favorite cookie is. And if you don't like cookies, let me know what your favorite dessert is. I'd love to hear it. And before I go, I'll show you a quick clip of Hazel here. She's having a very restful day, and I love that for her. All right, I'll see you in my next video. Bye.